they asked who's the better director, Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan won 80-20.
Wow, really?
Yeah, but that's really because, Nolan's the more recent director, and a lot of people, especially younger audiences, they haven't watched Scorsese's films early, especially his early films outside of the gangster movies or maybe Taxi Driver. And so they haven't seen a movie like The Color of Money to see like how much range he had as a director and how he can really do anything from romance to a billiards movie and still maintain his power as a director and visual artist.
What are the most underrated movies of all time? That's a question we'll be asking ourselves today in this episode of Raiders of the Lost podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. Now, we put together a list of the 50 most underrated films in our opinion.
It's very subjective.
Now, these are films that either have too low of a rating with critics and audiences, or they just aren't talked about in the cultural zeitgeist, especially in the film zeitgeist. They're films that are great, but like you never see them talked about online. They don't have that many ratings on Letterboxd.
Why doesn't anyone talk about these movies?
Nobody talks about them, so we're going to talk about them. I'm actually very happy with this list. There's some movies that we hope maybe you haven't heard of and maybe you'll watch after listening to this episode. And then there's some movies that I'm sure you've heard of and you're probably going to be like, you know what, that is underrated. Let's go.
And we try to hit every genre, almost every time period. We have recent movies. We have movies from the 70s, movies from the 80s. We have science fiction. We have horror. We have action. A little bit of everything on here just to kind of...
Got some Tom Cruise?
Blend it. Yeah, we got some Tom Cruise on here. Don't you worry. We got Tommy Boy on here. But we also posed a question on Instagram and Twitter, which maybe about halfway through, we'll read the answers to what you all thought were the most underrated movies of all time.
I can't wait to hear that.
Me neither. It's going to be terrific.
Now, do you want to get this kicked off with the first one on our list?
I would love to start off our 50 most underrated movies of all time.
And the list isn't in order of quality. This is just a list it's kind of randomized.
And also, if you want to listen ad-free to this episode, all you got to do is sign up for Patreon at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost podcast. Minimum $5 tier. Anthony, what is the number one movie on our most underrated films of all time list?
Now, we're going to kick this off with a Ryan Gosling film, The Place Beyond the Pines, from Derek Jan-France. This is one of my favorite crime films of the century. It's incredible. There's really nothing like it, and it doesn't really get the love it deserves. I think it's an all-time crime film. If I was going to make a list of like top 10 crime films that don't involve the mafia, I would put this on the list, absolutely. And Gosling's incredible. Ben Mendelsohn's great. Dane DeHaan, Mahershala Ali, Eva Mendes, just an incredible cast. And it's a fascinating story. Bradley Cooper about this like triptych kind of storytelling of basically 3 chapters in this life, in the family life, essentially. And I just think it's really incredible.
I always go back to The Godfather when I think about this movie, when I watch it. Obviously, the scope is way smaller, but we have a crime epic that spans generations. So we have these 2 men who coincidentally meet on an armed robbery because Ryan Gosling plays a thief and Bradley Cooper plays the cop that takes him down, basically. But it doesn't end there. The rest of the story is, first it starts off as Gosling's story, but then it turns into Bradley Cooper's story, and then their son's story as their sons coincidentally meet in high school.
Yeah.
And it kind of follows their story and their trajectory and how it connects to their father's past. And it's really well written, so well directed, and I adore this film, and we've quoted it a bunch. And some of my favorite heist scenes ever with Gosling on the dirt bike.
The dirt bike driving is great.
It's a really clever way to rob a bank.
So there's a bunch of great long takes. So first of all, there's great chases. So the bank robbery chase, the first one where he gets away, and Gosling trained for real for these driving.
He robbed
stunts.
5 real banks
just to get a sense for the character. But like he's evading the police, then he goes into the truck. Mendelsohn throws the door down. That's an incredible chase. The cemetery chase is fantastic with one of those cops chasing Gosling through the cemetery. And then this movie has one of my favorite long take oneers of recent memory, and it's Gosling at the carnival. Opens with him in his little trailer playing with a knife. Then he gets called out, so he puts a jacket on, walks through the carnival, gets on his dirt bike, and then he goes with the other 2 dirt bikers through that orb that they're riding around. That's all one take, and it's just a phenomenal oneer.
Between Drive and this these two movies maybe made Gosling the coolest actor in Hollywood today, possibly.
I agree.
Because the character design of both of them, obviously Driver kind of created a Halloween costume for film bros out there, but then the design for his character in Place Beyond the Pines and the character in general is just beyond cool. Very similar to like a Paul Newman-esque character from the past.
I do think that the bleach blonde hair, the tattoos, the messed up clothes, the paint cover clothes, it really inspired fashion for a few years for sure.
And then everyone's obviously waiting for us to go, put the money in the bag! Get your hands in the air! Get your hands in the air! We love this movie. Place Beyond the Pines is epic, and that's why we put it number 1 on our personal list of 50 most underrated movies. Let's move on to number 2. And this is a Tom Cruise movie.
Oh, yeah.
And we have it underrated because we think it's just underappreciated for how good it is in the science fiction genre and in the action genre. And of course, we are talking about Edge of Tomorrow, which is essentially a Groundhog Day type of film where a character is reliving the same day over and over again. This is based off a manga. And also, it's just so goddamn cool and epic, directed by Doug Liman, where there's an alien invasion, these mimics, who we discover can reset the day, which is why they are so efficient at conquering planets and conquering worlds, and their current conquest is Earth. And Tom Cruise plays basically a political, military employee who kind of just runs the politics behind the scenes.
guy.
Yeah, PR guy for the military. Yeah. Then he eventually gets put on the front lines in war as a Marine, and he dies, but he gains the powers of these mimics, these aliens, and he's able to now reset the day and becomes the only hope for humanity. It's so well made. The action is so unique. Never seen anything quite like it. I love the character design of just the suits, the exosuits, as well as the aliens. I adore Edge of Tomorrow.
In terms of Groundhog Day movies, even though Groundhog Day was the first one, this is my favorite Groundhog Day movie.
Same.
Ironically.
Yeah.
But then I put Groundhog Day second, and it's fun seeing Tom play a coward because it plays so against type for his entire career, and he did it really well. And then Emily Blunt is absolutely fantastic in this film. It's one of my favorite action movies, one of my favorite science fiction movies of the last 20 years. It's really, without a doubt, endlessly entertaining, super rewatchable, just a flat-out phenomenal sci-fi film.
Yeah, I think that's the best word for it, rewatchable.
It's so rewatchable.
It really
so
is.
good.
I really hope they make a sequel.
And it has a great ending.
It does.
Great ending.
It does.
All right. Moving to the next
It's
one.
funny that his character at the end of Edge of Tomorrow, it's so similar to Pete Mitchell in Top Gun Maverick, I feel like.
Pretty much.
Like the smile and everything.
But the start of the character is so different
yeah.
from Mitchell. All right, let's move into the third film on our list. And it's got two heavy hitter actors. We got Matt Damon and Edward Norton. Maybe y'all can guess this movie. It's the best poker movie ever made. Rounders. Now, there are other movies about poker and card playing made, but they're not really as poker-centric as this one is, and it's really incredible. It capitalized on the peak interest of Texas Hold'em in our culture in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was really popular. People were watching the World Series of Poker on ESPN every year. It was
ESPN 8, the Ocho.
The Ocho. It was such a popular sport. And this film...
Sport?
It's a sport. Yeah.
It's not a sport. What
would you call it? A game?
A game.
Yeah, but
it's not a fucking. It's not a sport. It was just on ESPN. They just had the rights. To, what are you high?
No, they're running on treadmills the whole time.
Are poker players athletes, Anthony?
Well, is pool a sport?
Yeah. Is it considered a sport?
Yeah.
Billiards considered a sport.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually a physical thing, though.
What's not physical about poker?
You're literally the same physicality of
it's mental.
Picking up a cup of coffee.
Dude, hold the control of your composure is super physical.
I wouldn't consider billiards or pool a sport.
Okay, I think billiards is a sport, but we're talking about poker. Okay, it's probably not a sport.
Poker's not a sport.
But this movie's so good. Matt Damon is phenomenal. Edward Norton is amazing as his friend who's just always in trouble.
Worm.
Always owes someone money. And
his name's a Worm, by the way.
Yeah, his name's Worm. And it capitalized on Matt Damon's incredible charisma and charm to the tenfold. It's just like he's so effortlessly cool on screen in this film. I adore the movie. It's also a great crime movie. And then John Malkovich plays a really great villain.
And we had the rise of Matt Damon in the late 90s, early 2000s. And
Pay
this
that
is one
man
of those
his
movies where like it was like this, Born Identity, and then what was the Francis Ford Coppola movie he did?
Well, that was The Rainmaker. That was actually before Good Will Hunting.
Well, the same year, 1997.
Yeah.
So it came out before Go Hunting. Okay, but still like the rise of Matt Damon because
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, Saving
That's
Private
the big
Ryan.
one.
So we had the trajectory of obviously Ben won the Oscar. Ben goes one direction. Matt goes the Streisand direction. I thought Matt Damon was more of a Streisand, but he's really rocking the shit in this movie right now. Ben became the tabloid guy, leading all these mediocre big blockbuster films, and Matt kind of made these smaller budget independent films because he made that deal. Was it with Miramax?
They both when they signed Good Will Hunting, they made a deal with Miramax to actually write 3 films, but then that never happened.
But Matt signed a deal. I think it was with Miramax or Weinstein Company to act in 5 movies. And
Maybe, yeah,
He made a bunch of those because a lot of those movies were produced by the Weinstein Company back then. But Rounders, you're right, is probably the best poker movie of all time. Let's move into an A24 film, a horror film from them, which came out all the way back in 2015 when they were really just turning that engine on and kicking out some really great ideas.
Before it was really a brand, too.
Exactly. And we have Green Room, which is an excellent horror film led by Anton Yelchin and Imogen Poots, as well as a great supporting role from Patrick Stewart. This was directed by Jeremy Saulnier, and it's about this little independent rock band that's on this very small van tour, basically playing these small bars, and they play a venue that turns out to be the hangout and kind of the headquarters of a fascist neo-Nazi gang, and they get trapped in the green room after playing a very anti-Nazi song.
And witnessing a murder.
That's right. That's the really important part. Yeah. They piss everyone off with their music.
Yeah.
Then they witness a murder. They're trapped in the green room, which is the back room of before a comedian or a musician or whatever goes on stage. And they have to basically fight their way out while all these neo-Nazis want to kill them. It's so good. Great gore, great action, and excellent acting.
It's so shocking, and it's one of those great one-location movies that's so rare to pull off, but they really do. Patrick Stewart was so surprising in this role as the leader of the crew, and he's just dynamic. But Yelchin, rest in peace, he was a really great actor, and he would have been huge in Hollywood by now.
Well, he already was.
Yeah, but he was rising, and he was like so talented. Imogen Poots is great. The other supporting actors are really good. There's a bunch of people you'd recognize and seen a lot nowadays. But
Joel Cole from Peaky Blinders.
Yes, he's great. It's just a really incredible movie. It's scary, it's shocking, it's gory, it's bloody, and it just is. It's unpredictable too, which is really important for a horror film to be unpredictable, and absolutely is.
I know
love it.
You're excited to talk about number 5. Speaking of sports and pool.
Speaking of billiards, now we have another Tom Cruise movie. I know it's two of the top 5, but this isn't ranked. It was just like, I had to put it up early because I love talking about it.
It's a Scorsese movie.
This is Martin Scorsese's The Color of Money, which is a sequel to The Hustler starring Paul Newman. Paul Newman also reprises his role in this film, bringing up the young protege Vincent, played by Tom Cruise. This movie is a perfect sequel, and in my opinion, it's one of the greatest sequels ever made. It could be possibly the greatest sequel ever made.
Godfather 2 is coming at you, bro.
Godfather 2, Dark Knight, this one, the Lord of the Rings movies, obviously, but this deserves to be in that conversation. It's that good of a movie, and unfortunately, for Scorsese movies, this is very much untalked about. It's not well seen, especially by younger audiences, but make no mistake, it really is exceptional. And I like how After Hours has gotten a lot of love recently.
Yeah, out of nowhere. I see it a lot.
It's been great, but I also think that The Color of Money deserves that too. And a lot of people, I saw this poll on a big Instagram movie account. They asked who's the better director, Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan won 80-20.
Wow, really?
Yeah, but that's really because, Nolan's the more recent director, and a lot of people, especially younger audiences, they haven't watched Scorsese's films especially his early films outside of the gangster movies or maybe Taxi Driver. And so they haven't seen a movie like The Color of Money to see like how much range he had as a director and how he can really do anything from romance to a billiards movie and still maintain his power as a director and visual artist. And this film is so expertly crafted, so well directed, visually dynamic for being a movie about pool. And then to see a young up-and-coming Tom Cruise really showcasing his true star magnetism opposite one of the biggest movie stars ever is just an incredible movie to behold. And in terms of legacy sequels, it's the best.
And it's up there. You don't have to watch The Hustler to, you don't have to see The Hustler to enjoy it, understand The Color of Money as well. Not everyone is up for watching The Hustler. It's a very slow film from 1960.
Yeah.
Black and white, so it's very slow paced for that era. It's normal, but for today's audiences, they might not be able to sit through it entirely. Color of Money, fast paced, entertainment, energy is there, and Fast Eddie is an incredible character played by Paul Newman, and what Scorsese does creatively to make Pool insanely dynamic and exciting for cinema is really shocking. And I watched it for the first time last year, per your recommendation over the course of the last 5 years. Finally watched it, and I texted Anthony immediately, 5 out of 5. This movie's so damn good. I can't recommend The Color of Money enough.
I have the poster in my room. That's how much I love it.
And Anthony hugs it every night.
Yeah, I hug my poster.
He hugs the wall.
I think you're going to say something else before you changed it to hug.
What do you mean? Well, you do have it on your ceiling.
No, it's my blanket. But also, Paul Newman won his much-deserved Oscar for this film.
Excellent third act, incredible ending too, and man, I love it.
It's a legacy sequel, so in terms of legacy sequels, I can't think of one that's better.
It's up there. Tropic Maverick's a great legacy sequel as well.
That's true. 2 top movies.
I know, right?
Jeez.
He knows how to do the legacy sequels, man. Maybe he looked at Color of Money as
they definitely did. Yeah.
Next up, number 6 on our most underrated movies of all time list, we have another science fiction film. This one called Moon, starring Sam Rockwell, written and directed by Duncan Jones, a.k.a. the son of Sir David Bowie. David Bowie is Sir?
Yeah.
Sir David Bowie. Moon is an excellent film. It really put Sam Rockwell on the map in terms of being a leading man, in my opinion. He was in a bunch of independent films, and this is an independent film, but this one really got him well known, I think, in the film community. And it's an excellent sci-fi film. He plays a man who lives on the moon for basically making sure the functioning of moon mining is going fine. He's there. He's the only human there to basically keep an eye on all the equipment for this company that's mining resources on the moon. And things start to happen go awry when a doppelganger who looks just like him shows up at the station he's working at the same time of him starting to become incredibly ill. And a great mystery unfolds. I don't want to spoil the film at all, but when it comes to doppelganger lookalike movies and in sci-fi in general, this century, it's one of my favorites. Sam Rockwell carries this movies in every single scene. He's really the only character we see for 98% of the film in terms of being a human.
97% of the film.
And for a performance like this, he didn't get any critical recognition at all, which was shocking. The guy should have gotten at least a nomination for Golden Globe, Oscar, BAFTAs for this role. He's really sensational, but this movie opened our eyes to Sam Rockwell back in, 2008? When it came out?
Something like 2007?
What year did Moon come out?
2009.
Moon movie.
2009,
yeah.
Yes, I did it.
Excellent poster as well, too. Excellent poster.
Excellent
skiing. Excellent.
All right, next up, we have...
Sorry about Cortana.
What about Cortana?
I think you didn't say.
Moving on to not only one of the most underrated films of all time, but the most untalked about directorial debut of all time from the great Michael Mann. His film Thief, starring James Caan. It is incredible. It's visually stunning. You could see his precision as a director and his style as a director in this film. It is so cool. It's so badass. And every time I watch this movie, I'm like, I can't believe this is his first movie. That's how good it is.
The opening scene alone.
I know, it's unbelievable. It could be like the best robber movie in terms of someone breaking in, robbing safes, whatever.
Heist.
Because it really isn't a cop presence in this movie. It's more of gangsters are his rival or his antagonists in this film rather than police. So it's not a cops and robbers movie, but James Caan absolutely steals the screen like he often did, and he's just perfect in this role. This is one of those great macho tough guy roles too, that you're just like, man, this guy is just so cool. But Michael Mann, one of my favorite directors, and I think all around he's an underrated director because he's made some really fantastic movies, and this is one of them. And if you haven't seen Thief, put it on your watch list right now.
It is a macho tough guy role, but this is when a lot of characters that define masculinity were being introduced with vulnerability as well And that character goes through a lot of that as well in this film. So that was starting to like kind of the characters were starting to change a little bit.
He's not good with emotions, though.
He's not. Next up, we have an epic. Anthony's fist pumping the air from Peter Weir, probably the best director out of Australia of all time. He's really sensational. Yeah. Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, starring Russell Crowe, set in the 1800s. This follows Captain Jack Aubrey in this incredible voyage. Do you want to just take it over?
No, you got it.
You're dancing.
I love this movie.
Just do it, man.
No, you got it. You're in
this incredible voyage. And when it comes to period pieces set in whatever century, 19th century, early 19th century, in terms of a voyage across sea, this is up there for all-timers. Production design, sensational, wardrobe, as well as the action sequences. Armada's going to war, Navy's going to war. We love it. It's so incredible to capture on film when you do it correctly. But Peter Weir, such a sensational director, he kills it with Master and Commander.
It's a shame that we never got sequels because this is based off a book series, which is actually inspired by true events of a real captain and the adventures he would go on. And the book actually took some crazy stories that this captain used to fool other rivals and to take out other ships. And he was really the real captain. Can't remember his real name, but Lucky Jack is inspired by him heavily. It's this guy who was rebellious, but he was like an incredible leader and just the best salesman the Navy had. So
Jack Sparrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they would give him. He was so good at winning, but the government hated him that they just gave him like bad boats, and they actually gave him the smallest boat in the Navy. But he managed to take out the most dangerous vessels in the rival armies through his tactics, through his cunning, and through his incredible strategy. So he's considered one of the greatest naval minds ever in history. And so Jack in this movie is inspired by him. Russell Crowe is unbelievable. The battle sequences, they are absolutely stunning, and still to this day, almost 20 years later, just stunning to behold on screen, and I can't believe they pulled it off. Unfortunately, it wasn't that successful at the box office, although critically, it's done pretty well. They wanted to make more, but they just didn't make enough money for them to make sequels, and it's a shame because they're never going to make movies like this again, outside of Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean is because it's fantasy, so they can throw in a bunch of like spectacle and CGI and stuff, but like this one, it's like, this is just, things like this really happen. I think it's more interesting to see like what real naval warfare was like 200 years ago.
We got a little taste of it in Napoleon, not quite ship versus ship. If you've seen that movie, you know what we're talking about. This one's exceptional. And what I love about it so much is I've never seen a movie capture sort of the day-to-day life of what it was like to be on one of these ships so well, not just on the top, but also below deck and everything like that. So I thought it was really fascinating to see the lifestyle of a sailor.
Yeah, it's great.
In that era. Moving on, Anthony.
Next up, we have another period piece war film, The Northman. One of the more recent films on this list. We put it on because we think Robert Eggers' film is absolutely stunning. Alexander Skarsgård is incredible. And in terms of Viking movies, I can't think of one that's better than this. It's phenomenal. It's epic. It's brutal. It's gory. It's graphic. It's fun. It's beautifully made. The production design, cinematography, the score is awesome. And also there's some mythos and cool fantastical sequences and elements that they wove in between it. This movie is just, I found it to be one of the best movies of the year of 2021. And I was shocked that it got no love whatsoever from any accolades, even though it deserved so much. I think if the movie came out 10 years ago, it would have been like an Oscar contender and at least gotten nominated for most of the production side. But unfortunately, I think that maybe times are changed where the interest in movies like this is just down.
Came out in 2022.
2022.
And it had a pretty weak box office. It was about $100 million budget, made $70 million at the box office, which means it was in the red by the end of its release because it probably would have had to make $250 million to become a profitable film. So, and this was the first time Eggers did not work with A24. I believe this was Universal, yeah. And I love this film, and I miss these kinds of movies as well. It's similar to Master and Commander in terms of these epics and the scale and the scope and the characters.
And it's something new.
It is something new, but, you know, Robert Eggers is a filmmaker that has something to say. I believe that's why so many people are drawn to his films, whether it's The Witch, The Northman, and in The Lighthouse. I'm so excited for his Nosferatu film, but people in the film world, in the film community, adore his work. He's one of the most exciting directors in the not just the horror category in genre, but obviously leaving that with The Northman. And I think that's why people are drawn to him, because his films have something in them that there's substance to them. The Northman is just him operating on all cylinders with a budget, what it looks like, similar to what Poor Things is going to be with Yorgos Lanthimos. What do these directors look like when they get a huge budget? And I can't wait to watch this one again. I love The Northman. I've seen it twice, and I was actually thinking about watching it the other night, but I chose something else.
You chose Harry Potter.
I can't remember what I chose, but it wasn't The Northman, but I freaking love this movie. It's really, really good.
Deserves to be on this list.
It absolutely does. Next up, we have a Jake Gyllenhaal movie. We're doing Nightcrawler. This movie came out all the way back in 2014.
Wow.
Holy crap. That's the year we moved to Los Angeles.
Jesus.
Directed by Dan Gilroy. Now, this is really well received on Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb 7.8 as well. We put it on this list because in terms of Jake Gyllenhaal's career, I don't really see this movie on there too often, but in general, it's just such a fascinating movie. This character, this guy, Lou Bloom, who really is this sinister, evil guy who will do anything to get a scam or make some money, and we learn he's a petty criminal, but then he discovers this job or profession of basically filming horrific accidents and then selling that to the media, selling that to newsrooms and companies for profit. And that becomes his profession to the point where he starts to become the catalyst for many of these accidents to gain wealth and to gain power in this media, in this form, and will do anything to take out competition and to just rise the ranks. And it's so well made. Such a unique movie and such a unique concept. And when it comes to Los Angeles movies, it's one of my favorite in recent years.
I feel like grabbing you by the ears and screaming, "I'm not fucking interested."
I'm going to go home and do some taxes. Accounting.
There's some great dialogue in this film. Dan Gilroy's script is really, really amazing. And, I mean, the lines in this movie, it's like really, really sensational script. And then cinematography by Robert Elswit, unbelievable.
It's aging really well, too.
Yeah, it's aging wonderfully.
Like a nice wine.
Next up, just like Jake is.
He is aging pretty fucking well.
Next up, we have Warrior, the best MMA movie, starring Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. I love this movie. It's inspiring. It's physical. It's violent. Great characters. Great story overall. Amazing ending. This is a movie where, like, by the end of the film, you don't even know who to root for, because they're play brothers who are both up for the prize money of this MMA tournament, and they both need the money for really good reasons. And you feel for them really well. The character work is done so well in this film. And by the end of the movie, when they're finally fighting for the championship and for the prize money, you're like, I don't know who I want to win. I want them both to win. And it's just so emotional. For being such a tough movie, it's very, very emotional.
And it's about a family that's broken as well. The story and the dynamic with their father, played by Nick Nolte, who's also an alcoholic, and is training Tom Hardy's character, that brother. And then Joel Edgerton's character is basically kind of training himself with another coach. But their dynamic, how they're estranged brothers, basically, they communicate once in a while, but they don't really connect anymore. And they aren't really connected to their father either. But the fighting really brings them together, even though Tom Hardy's character is on this one-man war mission, this path of hate, and his traumatic past feeding his energy to destroy everyone he goes up against, even his brother. He'll destroy anyone in his path. Is really great story.
For the right reason, too, to give money for his best friend's family who died in war.
And then countering that with Joel Edgerton's character, who needs the money to support his family. It's really great story, really great motivations for these characters, and excellent fighting.
And he's a teacher, and his students are always cheering for him.
Yeah.
That's great.
And Tom Hardy, his transformation for this movie is great. So isn't Joel's, and then it's similar to his massive transformation for Bane in Dark Knight Rises. He'll do anything for a role. But his traps in this movie are massive. They're like higher than his head. His head.
He's got big shoulders.
He's a beast in this movie.
He's got some big shoulders.
Holy crap.
He's a big boy in
this
one.
This is one of the rare movies where he got to keep all of his tattoos without makeup being
Oh,
put
yeah,
on
you're
him.
right. Yeah,
Like I love his interpretation of Bane. I love Dark Knight Rises, but you can tell he's covered in makeup a lot of the time for some of the shots, depending on the lighting, because they make up the crap, because he's got a ton of tattoos. But man, this is a great movie.
And it's very, very good fighting on screen.
It is.
It's very good.
Next, it's my turn.
You go.
It's my
Go.
turn.
Go
We're
ahead.
on number 11 of our most underrated movies of all time.
We're on 12.
We're on number 12 of our most underrated movies of all time. And we got Robert Zemeckis here. We have
Bob Zemeckis.
Bob Zemeckis starring Tom Hanks. We have Castaway. Castaway is a sensational film. Came out in 2000, turn of the century.
God.
Y2K, baby. Castaway came out. And it was one of the most successful films that year. It had a budget. It had a box office of $430 million back then, which, just for inflation, is probably
$6 billion?
Yeah, $6 trillion today. More like $700 million.
7 more billion.
Which is wild because not superheroes or anything like that. It's just an incredible film, and it's about this man who works for FedEx. And Christmas,
Great marketing.
I know. It's about this guy who works for FedEx. He's kind of a local regional manager or something, and it's the holiday season. He's making sure these packages get shipped correctly across seas on this plane, on this flight, as well as almost proposing to his girlfriend. And then the plane crashes, and he goes down with it, obviously, and they crash land into the ocean. Everyone on the plane dies except for him. He survives. And when it comes to desert island movies, this is the pinnacle of a person stranded on an island. And he survived.
It's the best plane crash sequence ever put on film.
The first act of this movie is sensational, but yeah, the crashing plane sequence,
incredible.
and then him surviving in the ocean, then getting to the island. It's some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's probably like the best one of the best action sequences that it's like of all time. That
like a
15-minute
10 minutes
sequence.
of the plane going down and everything. It's so sensational, so thrilling. I don't think I blink when I watch this. The last time I watched this movie, that whole sequence, I did not blink at all.
We watched it together, I remember, last year. And after the sequence and he was finally he finally made it to shore, we were both like, holy fuck. Oh my God.
Imagine seeing this in theaters, which we did not. But I know I'd seen it on TV a few
not.
times before.
It was on TV a lot. I
was
remember
very
it was
popular.
Like, it was on like USA or TNT a lot.
And then this man survives, and he's surviving and holding out hope on seeing his almost fiancée once again. And then eventually, we all know the story, he escapes that desert island with some pretty clever craftsmanship. But as well as the majority of the film is him by himself. And this is such a incredible performance, similar to Moon, where basically a one-man show, but more so with Moon than this because we have a lot of flashbacks. But this movie, Tom Hanks just carries it on his shoulders, in addition to incredible filmmaking, as well as some deep moral ideas and existential themes of suicide, self-worth, dignity, and then as well as the fight for survival. What will you do to survive?
And willingness to survive in that symbol on that one package, the wings.
Golden wings.
Yeah. Oh, fucking, what was in that fucking box, man?
I know. It's the thing that kept him going.
It's just like a pair of socks.
Also, some great gore. Even the sequence where he has to pop out his
Dude,
teeth
oh my God.
with the rock and the roller skate gets me every time.
But and then one of our oldest props ever is the Wilson soccer ball.
I got Wilson right here.
I mean, the volleyball.
So yeah, it's volleyball.
It's one of our oldest props.
It's one of the first things I got from my early desk when we decided, like, hey, we might actually have something cooking with this podcast. We should get some stuff for the set.
I can't believe how old it is. Wilson!
Wilson's been here with us for a long time. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Want to hear a joke? My dentist's name is Dr. James Spaulding.
Oh man, I love that movie. I think it's so good.
It is.
That's why we have it on this list, because it's really incredible. Next up, we have a Tarantino movie, believe it or not. We have The Hateful Eight. Hateful Eight is, in my opinion, one of the best scripts he's written, and it's just one of the best acted movies of the last 20 years. It's so incredible. And I know it's well-liked, but I don't think that it's as liked as it deserves to be, and it was so underappreciated at Oscar season and Globe season. It should have been nominated for everything. It really is that good of a movie. And for Tarantino movies, it's one of my favorites to watch now. It's really, really, really rewarding on rewatches. It's a lot of fun. I love the cast and I love the characters. And it's just, Tarantino having so much fun as a writer and director in this one. It's one of Sam Jackson's best performances. Walton Goggins cracks me up in this movie. It's just really sensational movie. And then, Kurt Russell, he's always been a massive Kurt Russell fan, and obviously he put him as stuff.
Kurt Russell has?
Tarantino has.
No, I'm just joking because Kurt Russell has always been a Kurt Russell fan.
I'm sure he likes himself. But Tarantino's always been a Russell fan, and he obviously put him in as Stuntman Mike in Death Proof, but like to make him like basically the lead of this movie, you can see how rewarding it is for him and the audience. It really shows on screen.
Jennifer Jason Leigh won the Globe for this one, right?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
But I mean, Samuel Jackson, how he hasn't won an Oscar for any of his Tarantino movies, or at least been nominated, is beyond me. I mean, Jules in Pulp Fiction, but then here in The Hateful Eight, as well as in Django Unchained, I think these are two Samuel's best performances in his entire career. And The Hateful Eight, that's the reason we have it on this list, is because it's insanely underappreciated for Tarantino in his career. And I see a lot of hate for this movie online. A lot of people find it boring. A lot of people find the dialogue there's too much of it. I think it's so well written. It's like Anthony said, it's incredible what he's able to do with this script of all these characters in one location, basically inside this haberdashery for 2.5, 3 hours for the majority of the film. There's so much mystery involved, so much playfulness, and Tarantino doing things like having an intermission in the film because he's Tarantino and he can put an intermission in the film. When we saw this in theaters, it's one of my favorite movie theater experiences of all time still. We saw it on Christmas Day on 70mm film. They had an overture playing for about 20 minutes before the film started, which was really cool. They had a program, they had wardrobe and props there, and they had a legitimate intermission for 15 minutes. It was just the screen cut to black for 15 minutes. It was so cool, and then come back, and he keeps that in the movie. Obviously, it's just like 10 seconds of black.
Yeah.
But then the voice of the narrator still comes in. He's like, all right, now that we're back with our friends and see what's going on. He kept it in the movie because it's Tarantino. He can do whatever he wants. I think it's a perfect movie, honestly. And I still think that there's time for it to be appreciated aptly for what it's worth because it's so well made. But it's a really bold movie, even in Tarantino's career. And to open your movie up with a 5-minute zoom out, pull out of the statue of Jesus on the cross with horror music basically playing in the background from Ennio Morricone, it's awesome.
It's a great title
it's
opening.
Awesome.
Great title sequence.
All right, moving on to... we need to talk about Kevin. I haven't seen this movie in a long time, so you can take this one.
Yeah, directed and written by Lynn Ramsey. This stars Ezra Miller and Tilda Swinton and John C. Reilly. And Ezra plays a psychopathic eventual killer of students in his school. And so Tilda, it goes between flashbacks and present day. And so Tilda's the mother. And so it cuts between her dealing with the fallout of him killing students in his school, and then cross-cutting that with his childhood when he was a kid, and all the signs that led up to this troubled killer's mind. And the characterization of both Tilda and Ezra's characters is really great. It's sensational writing and incredible directing. It's very fascinating. It's a dark movie. It's a very grim and difficult movie to watch, but it's very, very rewarding. Especially on rewatches. It's really an incredible portrait of a serial killer, and it's just Tilda. She's one of my favorite actors, and I know everybody hates Ezra Miller now, but he is also extremely talented, and this is a proof of like how good he is as an actor, how good they are as an actor. Just incredible to be that young and going opposite Tilda Swinton, blow for blow in this way is just really impressive, and it's just. You know, this is a time. There's another film like Elephant by Gus Van Sant about a school shooting. You know, these are difficult stories to tell, but they happen in real life. So it helps us try to understand what's happening in these kinds of situations. I definitely recommend checking it out, but it's not for the faint of heart. But it is a sensational film. It's really impressive work by Lynn Ramsey.
Moving on to number 15, we have a David Cronenberg film starring Viggo Mortensen, Maria Bello, and Ed Harris, as well as Willem Hurt, A History of Violence. This movie is so great. It's got an awesome mystery and twist. Viggo Mortensen plays this character, this guy named Tom Stahl. He's just a simple guy in a small town in the middle of fucking nowhere, like Idaho or something. And he has this diner, and he has a family. He's got the whole thing. The wife, the kid, very happy man, very normal life. Until these robbers come to his diner and try to rob the place, and he messes them up and destroys them with precision and skill.
That not even he knew he had.
Yeah. It seems the audience is like, who is this guy? And it gets national attention. A news story is made about him. And then these weird wise guys start to come
From
to
Philly.
his town to start asking him questions, and they seem to know him. Everyone's confused, and he's trying to play it off like, I have no idea who these guys are. And I don't want to spoil the twist because it's awesome. But when it comes to Viggo Mortensen, it's one of my favorite movies he's done, as well as Cronenberg. Cronenberg, like, he did 2 movies with Viggo Mortensen that I really love. This one and Eastern Promises. They're so cool. Great gore, great action, great violence, and great ideas. And this one specifically it's just got such a great twist and a great third act. And I really, really love the script. It's an awesome idea, and I can't recommend it enough.
Amazing twist. You don't see it coming, and it's really, really great. It's very violent. It's a great film about violence. I love it. Next up, we have Apocalypto, which tells the story of a small Mayan village. Well, they're not even Mayan. They're just like their own little culture who the men get kidnapped by Mayan warriors and taken.
Well, the Mayan Empire spanned
Yeah.
a huge region, so there's small tribes in there.
Yeah, so their tribe gets raided, and the men get captured to be sacrificial parts of the ritual in the Mayan city. And then it's about one of them who eventually escapes, and it's basically a chase movie for the second half of the movie. It's impressive filmmaking. It's incredible. It's one of the most entertaining action movies of all time. They don't speak any English, which I think was a really smart move. It's so cool. There's really nothing like it because it's very accurate to the culture. It's very honest and truthful and raw. And then it's incredibly visceral and exciting and grisly and brutal. But man, I love this movie. I've seen it many times, and I think it's one of the most underappreciated films ever made, in my opinion.
Mel Gibson's one of the best actor-directors of all time.
Yeah.
And he made some bangers. I mean, Braveheart's awesome as well, but Apocalypto is really sensational filmmaking, and I really love this movie.
I think it's his best movie.
It's up there. It's really terrific stuff, and yeah, we can't recommend it enough. Moving on to a remake of a Western from 1957, I believe. We have 3:10 to Yuma, starring Christian Bale, Russell Crowe, Ben Foster, and Logan Lerman, directed by James Mangold. And this is one of his best movies, but when it comes to Westerns this century, there aren't a ton of great ones. This is one of the great ones. And it's an excellent story of Russell Crowe playing this outlaw who's been caught. He's under arrest, and now they have to transfer him to a train, the 310, to Yuma to get him to prison. And the sheriff's department, the police, they are short-staffed, so they recruit some locals, one of them being Christian Bale, who needs some money to support his family during the season where their crops aren't producing, right? They have a farm that's not producing any food.
They had to bring their family out there, and they can't grow crops. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and he's also injured from the war. He's got one leg. He's got a wooden leg. And it's basically kind of a slow chase to get to this train while the outlaws from Russell Crowe's character's gang, Ben Wade, right? That's his name. Ben Wade's gang are trying to rescue him at the same time. But the character development between Ben Wade and Christian Bale's character is really awesome and incredible. They sort of create a friendship, and then by the end of the film, they're kind of working together to get him on that train. He's like, I've been to Yuma twice, escaped twice. So he ain't worried about getting out. It's an awesome film. Great production design, great wardrobe, great acting. I really love it. And I love Westerns, and this is one of the best this century.
For a one-legged rancher, he's one tough son of a bitch. Ben Foster is amazing in this. There was a movie where I really took note of Ben Foster.
Yeah, me too.
He's fantastic. Next up, we have in fucking Bruges.
Fucking Bruges? It's like a fucking fairy tale, right?
Martin McDonagh's become a huge name as a writer-director. He most recently did in The Banshees of Inisherin, but he broke out with In Bruges with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson and Ralph Fiennes. It's such a funny movie. I think it's one of the funniest movies ever made. I laugh out loud when I see it. It's really great characters, because what makes it's more than just a comedy. It's a character-driven comedy. It's so well written. It's so well acted by Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. They have so much great chemistry, and you can see why McDonagh got them together for Banshees, because it's like they are just dynamite on screen together. And Colin Farrell, especially in this film, but I believe he won a Golden Globe for this film, or at least got nominated. But I think he won a Golden Globe for this movie, and it's just endlessly entertaining. It's dark and funny, and just like fascinating to watch. The comedy, it's kind of like an acquired taste of comedy, but if you get it, you laugh out loud during this movie. And it's also very vulgar and not PC friendly, which I think is still, it's just like movies like this movie would never get made today. It's like that kind of comedy.
Moving up to number 19 on our list, we have, I think, a controversial pick, but I'm going to stand by it. A Steven Spielberg film. We have Ready Player One. Now, there is a divisive opinion about this film online I've seen. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it. I think it's an incredible book, and it's for an adaptation. They did a really great job for this massive book. You can only do so much, especially with something like this. And when I watched this movie, I felt...
Did you read the book first? Or?
Yeah,
okay.
I read the book first, and I watched the movie. It felt so similar to the adventure films of Spielberg's past. It really felt... I felt that kinetic energy that we felt in the Indiana Jones films and so many others from Steven Spielberg, the third act of E.T., and this movie really took me back to feeling like that. Not that he hasn't done that in a while, but, the 21st century Spielberg, the last 15 years, he's done a lot of smaller budgeted films compared to his past, as well as, more dramatic films. And this one really felt like that adventure film that he built his career off of.
There's this and Tintin are like the adventure films he's made.
Yeah, it really, what he built his career off of in terms of being a global director and huge star in filmmaking, this felt like that. And the story's eerily close to home about this not quite post-apocalyptic world, but this insanely impoverished future where the average citizen their life is so terrible, everything's shit, where they spend all their time in this virtual world, this virtual reality called the Oasis. And the Oasis is an escape from the day-to-day life. It's where everyone spends their time. That's basically the economic system, the monetary system is in the Oasis credits. That's where everyone puts their money into.
Crypto!
Exactly. I think we'll get to credits at some points in a lot of movies. And what happens in the Oasis is the creator passes away, but then he leaves an Easter egg hunt for someone to gain control of the Oasis and all of his wealth. And whoever finds these 3 keys will eventually win the prize of getting control of the Oasis. And so we have this young character, this teen, who's one of the best Oasis players out there, and he's obsessed with this Easter egg hunt and going against a corporation that's trying to take over the Oasis. And it's a great film, great CGI, great animation, combined with incredible practical filmmaking in the real world as well.
It's an awesome movie.
It's an awesome movie.
That's
so funny.
You gave us the whole movie plot.
Oh, that's what we're doing. We've been doing the plot for all of these.
It was 10 minutes later.
It's going to be a good clip, man. I like Ready Player One.
I know, I can tell.
Anyways.
You wouldn't shut up about it.
Anthony hates... Yeah. Anyways, Anthony hates Ready Player One.
No, I love it. I think it's underrated. 7.4, I think it's too low. It's a really, really fun movie. All right, next up, we have another Tom Cruise movie, number 3 on this list. We have Edward Zwick's The Last Samurai. In my opinion, one of the most misunderstood films of all time. And it's one of my favorites to watch. It's a beautiful film, stunning cinematography, score by Hans Zimmer. Ken Watanabe is great. Tom Cruise is great. I think this movie is misunderstood for 2 reasons. The name is confusing. I looked on Letterboxd today, and everyone's making fun of Tom Cruise being the final samurai. The Last Samurai means this is the last group of samurai.
Plural.
Samurais pluralized in the title, so I think people are misled by the title. And then also, they think it's a white savior movie, and it's not. So those couldn't be more incorrect. This is a movie that embraces Japanese culture, the Japanese samurai culture. It shows a great respect and love for that community in that period of time.
Loosely based on a real guy, too.
So it's based on a French soldier who actually did, during these battles, he joined up with the samurai against the will of his own French army, and he fought with the samurai. So it's actually inspired by true events of a real, a white Westerner who joined the samurai to fight with them. And Tom Cruise doesn't save anyone in this movie. Tom Cruise doesn't save the day. He just merely joins them. And he doesn't even actually become a samurai. So I think that people they don't understand what the movie is. And this movie, I think, is an embracement of that. And also, if you want to make a big samurai epic, the only way to get it made on this kind of a scale is to get a movie star in it. And Tom Cruise is one of the biggest movie stars of all time. So you got to put him on the poster to sell the tickets. And so I think that this movie is just not understood for how beautiful, how meaningful it is, and I adore the movie.
It's rich in intense detail, spirituality, culture. It's a sensational film. We'll never get movies like this ever again. We really won't on this scale, this epic. It's awesome.
And it does talk about, the destructive forces of the white Westerner, especially in America and then in other cultures. So that dark past is actually really well embraced in this film and showcased. He plays a man who hates this culture, and then he grows to love it. It's just really beautiful story.
As well as the globalization of Western culture kind of infusing itself and taking over other cultures, which happens in Japan and happened in Japan.
Yeah.
And they show that in this film. Now, let's move on to the next film on our list, Take Shelter, which is an awesome movie from Jack Nichols starring Michael Shannon, which is very much a religious allegory in terms of it's about this guy who has these visions about this storm that will destroy everything around them. And he's in this small town, and he's basically trying to warn everybody, but no one believes him. Everyone thinks he's crazy. They think he's going nuts with these visions.
He starts building like a safe, what do you call it?
He starts to build an underground bunker. A shelter to save himself and his family from this storm that he believes is coming. Everyone thinks he's out of his mind. It's a great movie about, is this guy having delusions or is he having premonitions, which is very similar to many religions, the stories that they tell in their religious text, whether it's the Torah or the Bible or whatever. So many of these stories are about these characters or these people who have premonitions of doom to come and saving people and saving themselves. Or are they chosen by a higher power, a god, to save for them? Are they chosen for a reason to survive?
And it's a big movie it was for Shannon and for Jessica Chastain as well. It was part of 2011. Jessica Chastain came out with this, The Tree of Life, and 2 other movies. So she blew up in a big way because of this year.
What a third act, too.
Great third act. And also, like, when he's investing all of his family's money in this shelter, which complicates things. It's a really good story. I love it. All right, next up we have William Friedkin film called Sorcerer. And now we've talked about this on the show quite a lot because it really is that good. It's about 4 men who have evaded complications and problems from their past in different countries, and they've all found themselves in a village in the middle of South America, just hiding from their past. And then a job is put upon the men. So in a nearby mining facility, they need dynamite to help with the problem that's happened with the mine. Now, the dynamite is stored like 500 miles away in the jungle safely. And so these men are tasked with driving on trucks very sensitive dynamite across the jungle.
Yeah, it's in these boxes.
Yeah.
If like you push it too much, it'll explode.
If it moves too much, they will explode because the dynamite's been sitting out for very long, so it's extra sensitive. So it has to be transported very carefully, but they have to drive through the difficult terrain of the jungle. It's incredible. It's one of the most awe-inspiring films I've ever seen in terms of a production standpoint. Like William Friedkin and his crew actually shot this in the jungle. It looked like it must have been hell to make, but it paid off. It's got one of the most insane stunt sequences I've ever seen. The truck bridge sequence is absolutely jaw-dropping. It's really mind-blowing, this movie, and it's incredible filmmaking, acting, cinematography. The score is cool. So, I mean, in terms of movies that nobody really talks about, this has got to be top of the list. That really deserves all the praise in the world.
Plus that final shot, man.
Oh, my God.
Final shot. Have you screaming at the TV. Next up is a movie I've never seen, so why don't you take it? Or actually, we'll skip. I'll do 24, you do 23.
Yeah, they're not in order.
Number 24. Oh, my God. Hell yeah. We have First Blood, which is the first Rambo movie starring Sylvester Stallone. He wrote this one. Didn't direct it, though, right?
Correct.
Did he direct?
No.
He did not direct.
What you said was correct.
What I said was correct. And we all know he plays Rambo, who's a Vietnam War vet who comes back from the war. And at the time, Vietnam War vets were treated with hate,
disdain
from Americans. And that's basically what he's treated with because he's just trying to find a place to bunker down or find a place to stay for the night, basically.
He's looking for his friend. He's looking for the family of his friend who died during war. He's trying to find
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And he's just walking through this town, and then because he's a Vietnam War vet, he's got this long hair, he's got his green jacket on. The sheriff pulls him over, arrests him just because of being who he is.
First, he tries to kick him out of town. He's like, get out of here. And then when Rambo refuses, then he arrests him.
And then basically it's him versus this sheriff's department. And little do they know, they just arrested one of the most badass Green Berets on the planet. And it's survival experts, a killing expert, and it becomes a war of police versus one man.
I think that because Rambo, the franchise, has become kind of like, in a way, not a joke, but like not taken seriously because of, first of all, how many movies there are and many of them aren't really that great. And because of how just action-heavy, ridiculous action it is. I think that people, if they haven't seen the first one, they might not realize how great of a film it is and how intense of a character study it is. And it, like you said, it really is about, very much about the reactions that men who fought in Vietnam, who really, they were just called up and they were just serving their duty and they were doing what they were ordered to do. And then they came home and they were hated. And really, that's seeped into this film in such a great way. It's a lot more than just an action movie. And then in terms of the action, it's much smaller than we usually see in the Rambo movies. Obviously, it's intimate and it's brutal and it's visceral, and it's very small in scale. It's a very simple story, but it's expertly crafted and perfectly directed. And Stallone really is fantastic as Rambo. It's one of his better performances in his career. And this movie, it deserves to be like looked at again in terms of action movies. It's that special of a film, I think. All right, moving on to the one that James hasn't seen, but I have a few times, and I just couldn't recommend it enough. It's Match Point, starring Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, and Matthew Good. It's about this failed tennis star who's now a tennis instructor. He's kind of like trying to make ends meet, and then he falls in with high society based upon one of his clients who he trains, and he's just this wealthy elite socialite, comes from a really great British family, and then he marries the guy's sister to kind of, in a way, buy himself into this high society. He rises up the ranks of elitism, starts making a ton of money, but at the same time, he's having an affair with the client's fiancée, Scarlett Johansson. And as they start this affair, it becomes a very dark thriller, a mystery thriller about murder, and about how far you're willing to go to protect yourself and this kind of new life you've built to preserve that, and what you're willing to do to save that. And it has an incredible second act, absolutely incredible. This movie will floor you. I highly recommend checking out Match Point.
Have you seen that video meme of the two like East Coast guys? They're asked about he was the best guy around. What about all the murder? What murder?
That's exactly it.
All right, number 25 on our list. We'll bang out, and then we'll get right to our intermission and come back to the rest of the list. We have a superhero film, our first comic book movie on the list.
Yes, first one.
First comic book movie. Well, actually, manga's technically sort of graphic novel. We have
whatever, man.
Watchmen. Zack Snyder's Watchmen, based off the Alan Moore book, graphic novel, which we think is a sensational comic book film, one of the most underappreciated and so far ahead of its time. Not really talked about anymore, but from a production standpoint and adaptation standpoint, Zack did a really stellar job with this film, using obviously the frames from the graphic novel as very much a storyboard for the movie, capturing many of the same images shot for shot, which is sensational. A controversial switch up at the third act with the ending of the film, but overall an incredible adaptation. We love it so much. Great practical filmmaking, a lot of great action sequences, and Zack Snyder just doing what Zack Snyder does best, making big blockbuster epics, and we love Watchmen so much, and I just don't think it's appreciated anymore. And I have heard very mixed things about the TV show. I haven't checked it out. I probably won't because I just love the movie.
Yeah, I really like this movie. I think it's awesome.
All right. Let's head into our intermission, but before we continue, the very best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. It is a subscription-based form of support. Every single patron, for perks, gets access to weekly bonus episodes of the show. We just did one on Napoleon last week, so if you want to hear us review that film, you have to sign up for a Patreon, but everyone has access to it. Like I said in the beginning, you'll also get access to the ad-free version of every single episode at the minimum $5 tier. $10 tier, you get access to our Discord. Going all the way up to $25 tier, you get a custom episode. $100 tier, you get so many perks. They're coming out of your ears, like free merch, private watch parties, all sorts of things. Patreon allows us to do the show full time, so thank you so much for your support. You can sign up again at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. I'll put a link in the description of this episode as well. Another way to support the show, leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. They really help us get seen by new listeners on these platforms. I'll read out an Apple review in just a moment. And then the number one way to help our show grow is to share us with your family and friends. Share us on your Instagram accounts, on Twitter, text episodes to whoever you want, YouTube. It's the best way for a podcast to grow organically. So we need your support by sharing us with everyone in your contact list. Just send them an episode right now.
Share the load. This episode, of course, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the number one place to get your posters online today. Be sure to use our promo code Raiders10 at movieposters.com to get 10% off your order right now. They have a huge selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library, as well as all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting for your poster needs. The holiday season is upon us. You got to get a gift for the movie lover in your life. What else are you going to get them then? A great movie poster of one of their favorite films. And of course, if you're going to do that, you got to go to movieposters.com and use our promo code Raiders10 to get that 10% off discount right meow.
All right, let's head into our intermission, Anthony. We'll begin with the movie quote competition. Are you ready?
Ready.
This is between two characters. First character goes, "What happened?" Second character, "What happened, my dear Zero, is I beat the living shit out of a sniveling little runt called Pinky Bendinsky, who had the gall to question my virility. Because if there's one thing we've learned from Penny Dreadfuls, it's that when you find yourself in a place like this, you must never be a candy ass. You've got to prove yourself from day one. You've got to win their respect. You should take a long look at his ugly mug this morning. He's actually become a dear friend."
Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yes.
All right, here's mine. Emotional, not fun. A lot of fuss. They cry, they plead, they beg, they piss themselves, they call for their mothers. It gets embarrassing.
Say it again, but slower.
Emotional, not fun. A lot of fuss.
Oh, wait, okay. Killing them softly?
Yes.
Got it.
Nice job.
Thanks.
Good one.
So that's when Brad's talking to Scoot McNairy's character?
No, it's Richard Jenkins' character.
Richard Jenkins' character. Okay, at the end.
And then he says, "I like to kill them softly."
Gotcha.
Yeah, when they're at the bar.
America's a business. Now fucking pay me.
Pay me.
Moving on to guess this movie release year, Anthony. The Road.
The Road came out starring Vigo. John Hillcoat's a really good Australian director as well.
Proposition.
The Road came out in 2006.
2009.
Damn. Oh, wow.
A couple years after No Country.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, we need another Cormac McCarthy
another
movie.
one.
Pretty Little Horses, obviously, like 1999, but he was hot after No Country.
All right, what year did Animal Kingdom come out?
Oh, we're all over Australians today.
Yeah, I did a Ben Mendelsohn trivia
2009.
section. 2010.
One off.
Close,
man.
Close, but no cigar.
No cigar. Movie pop quiz time, Anthony. Who directed Lawless?
John Hillcoat.
Yeah. God damn it.
When I said, yeah, John Hillcoat's a great director,
I was gonna say,
you were probably like, fuck.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Lawless too.
All right. Ben Mendelsohn starred in Ryan Gosling's directorial debut, which is called...
Something River. Not The River. It's fucking... Oh, what is it? Blue...
You're close,
Blue
man.
River? No.
River's in the title.
River is in the title. Crap.
You're close, man. You almost got it. Think about it. You got this.
Deep River, under river.
You're just going to try every word with river until you get it right.
Chair River. Refrigerator
Lamp
river.
river.
Refrigerator River. Oh my god. Oh, it's gonna fucking piss me off. I know this, man. I know it.
Clearly you don't.
Guillermo
if you know it, you know it.
Guillermo was
going
gonna make it, but he dropped out.
No, he said he would have loved to make it. He didn't drop out.
So Guillermo dropped out of the project.
You don't know any. Clearly don't know what you're talking about. He did a Q&A with Gosling, and he's like, "Man, if you didn't direct this, I would have happily directed it."
I can't remember the full title.
Lost River.
Lost River.
Lost River. Nice try though.
Almost.
You got River.
I got River. He got a logo.
All right, what's your streaming recommendation?
My streaming recommendation is The Proposition, which is on Peacock, directed by John Hillcoat. So I recommend that. I went with like underrated movies as well for my my recommendations in intermission. Proposition's a great Western that takes place in Australia.
I picked a Robert De Niro movie that I've been meaning to watch called Midnight Run. It's
Midnight
really
Ruin?
good. It's Midnight Run on Netflix. And he plays a former cop who's now a bounty hunter. And he's found this high-priced bounty, this guy who betrayed the mob. He's also wanted for crimes as a criminal accountant. And so De Niro is trying to transport the guy across country from the East Coast to California. And it's really funny. It's a great road comedy, great action comedy. It's really fantastic. I highly recommend Midnight Run.
Midnight Run. All right. I have a great 5-star review that I'd love to read.
Let's hear it.
So here we go. This is from SC Lewip 15. Is that their Snapchat? My favorite podcast.
Aw.
I wanted to say thanks for the incredible content you consistently deliver. I love the movie news episodes. I hope one day you'll come out with a good, the bad, and the ugly review.
Oh, nice.
I would love to do that. We should do the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, SC Lewip 15, for listening, for your review, and your support. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Now we have a couple unsubscribes. We have Donnie Owens made 2, actually. He's the only 2
from Donnie.
So on the your 100 greatest movies of all time, yours, he wrote, I need to see Young Guns 1 and 2 on this list. Unsubscribed. And then in our Letterboxd Top 100, he wrote, this is the most artsy-fartsy movie list I've ever had the displeasure of viewing. I award Letterboxd no points and may God have mercy on their soul. No Matrix? Unsubscribed.
Oh, yeah, The Matrix was in the top 100.
Wasn't in the top 250.
That was messed up.
There's a Billy Madison reference, though.
Yeah, I know.
Sick reference. I'm
glad I called that guy.
Business ethics.
All right, let's get back into the most underrated films of all time. And how about we run through everyone that sent in their choice of the most underrated film of all time on Twitter and
Let's
Instagram.
hear it.
So we have MT Riley wrote Nightcrawler, Andrew Whaley, Tron Legacy, Max Uzzle. The Sun is so underrated. Donnie, Death to Smoochie. Edgar Fox, Manhunter.
Nice.
Will Carty, Godzilla from 2014. Gabriel, Catch Me If You Can, or Dead Poets Society. And then we have BJ Hardy, Jack and Jill. Syrian, Place Beyond the Pines.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Galaviz, Now You See Me. Julia, Hunt for the Wilder People. Jack, Hostels.
Nice.
Good pick. I think, it's an excellent pick.
That's
Scott
an underrated
Cooper
movie. That's an underrated movie.
Steven wrote Paddleton. Techno Staple, definitely Phone Booth. That's a pretty good pick. Yeah, it's a fun thriller.
Farrell. Yeah.
Dawson, Bottle Rocket. That's a really
Nice.
good pick for a Wes Anderson movie for sure. RZX, The Place Beyond the Pines. We got another one. Nathaniel, Treasure Planet. I like that pick. The Voice Note Podcast. Ready Player One. Hell
Hey.
yeah. As well as Kong Skull Island and Midnight in Paris. Midnight in Paris. It's a pretty good. Yeah, I liked it the last
I
time
don't
I
think
watched
it's
it.
underrated.
Joshua Smith, The Iron Giants. Would you say it's underrated?
I would say
Because of Pixar,
it didn't make much money, but it's widely considered one of the best animated films, I would say.
I think it's especially for 2D animation, it's up there. And then C.R. Dutta, Bad Boys 2.
That's a good action movie. That's a great pick. I think Bad Boys 2 is a really good pick.
Point Break or Bad Boys 2. Which one do you think I'd prefer? No, which one do you want to watch first? Now let's head to Twitter and see what everyone said here.
Oh, you made a tweet?
Yeah,
Nice.
I made a tweet. We got 19 responses.
You made an X?
We have Gala Films wrote Funny Games. The looks like they sent the American version, Hollywood version. Gregory, Mystery Men. Ian Matthews, Babylon. Serial Boy, The Gray. Stay tuned,
Nice.
Serial Boy. You might like the rest of our list. Oh, Enrique wrote Apocalypto.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Enrique knows what's up.
Ramen, My Life. Enrique also wrote Zodiac. John Raphael, sorry. Sunshine, Silence, The Martian, and Chef. Then
Sunshine's underrated, yeah.
Do you think Silence underrated?
Silence?
Yeah.
Silence is very underrated.
Yeah,
We should put it on our list.
Yeah, I think we should put it on our list. I'm going to put it... We should do that next then. We'll cross something else out. I can't believe we forgot about Silence. Craig Henderson, Nightcrawler. Cinema Connoisseur. Something else. You're just complimenting that. Jack Lemmon's Place Beyond the Pines. Doug Costello, Wild Wild West.
Chicken.
And then we have Gilby's The Wise. This is the Brad Pitt movie. Which one's this?
Is it an image?
Is it the river one?
Let me see.
That's
Legend of the Fall.
Legend of the Fall, gotcha. We also got Sam Burns wrote Almost Heroes. Umair Zaya, Nocturnal Animals, Collateral, Children of Men, Unsundee, Hell or High Water, unsubscribed. Alan Towell, Unsundee. Should we put Unsundee on this list?
It's an 8 on IMDb.
Yeah, that's true. AEO Films, Dread, love it.
Yeah, good pick.
Harriet Lecter, Victor Victoria. And then Alita Warrior wrote Alita Battle Angel.
Oh, Alita Battle Angel is very good.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick.
It's a good pick.
So, what did we say we're going to put on? Silence. So
I think we should. We can replace one.
Let's replace.
We can replace 39 because 39's really well liked.
39
It's just not that many people have seen it. Or I could replace 32.
We can keep it. Here, ready? I popped something out from the end, and we're just gonna put Silence at number 26. And you're
we repeated 48.
Yeah, by accident.
That's what it is. So yeah, just put it in 48 because we already did 48 earlier.
And then cool.
That worked out perfectly. Now we don't have a repetition. All right, let's get into.
We don't want repetition.
Let's get into our list with 26. We have a Tony Scott movie. In my opinion, the best Tony Scott movie, even though he made some awesome films. Crimson Tide, starring Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman, two of the all-time greats going head-to-head, blow for blow. It's an incredible movie. It's a submarine film. It's about a confusion with an unfinished transcription radio call of an order, and the captain and the first mate, Denzel, they're not sure if their order is to fire a nuclear warhead or to not fire a nuclear warhead. And so one man thinks they should fire, and one man thinks they shouldn't. And it's about the conflict between that and also the people who join up with them amongst the crew. It's an incredible film. It's so well directed and so well acted. I think it's an all-time military movie. And then you get a banging score by Hans Zimmer, one of his most underrated scores, too. It's an incredible movie. I love Crimson Tide.
Yeah, this is one we've talked about a few times on the show in terms of recommending it to people to watch, obviously in our Denzel Washington spotlight, but we love Crimson Tide. It is excellent in, a single location really for a huge cast. It's really exciting. There's so much kinetic energy in this film. It's just fast-paced once it gets going.
Oh, yeah.
The stakes are massive. World-shattering stakes, and it's kind of scary to see how many people had control over nuclear warheads before, in this era of, what was it, the 1990s this takes place?
It's inspired by a true story of a Russian submarine captain who did the same thing.
Yeah, and so the captains of these submarines had control over the nuclear warheads, and they could launch them if they thought they had to, which is scary to have that many people in control of nukes. So... thank God that changed because
it's a fucking great movie.
It increased the probability of something terrible happening. Now, let's get into something lighter.
The complete opposite.
And when it comes to music films, obviously people bring up the hits. A lot of Damien Chazelle films, obviously. Bohemian Rhapsody is a common one. But there's a specific one that we think is insanely underrated, coming from Ireland, called Once. This came out in 2007. And it's about these musicians who basically meet by chance. And this guy who's a singer, songwriter, guitarist meets this woman who's also a singer and plays piano. And they create beautiful music together. And it's a love story combined with a story about terrific music and creating that art form together. And it's really beautiful. It's endearing, emotional, insanely well written and directed and acted, and it's got beautiful music in it.
Very minimalist production, but it will make you cry your ass off. I guarantee it. So good. All right, next up we have Ben Affleck's directorial debut, Gone Baby Gone, which is a criminally underrated crime film about the investigation of a missing girl by a local Bostonian who knows the streets really well. played by Casey Affleck, and his slash wife, Michelle Monaghan. It's a really incredible film. It's a great mystery with a fucking shocking twist. Really, really sensational. What an impressive debut by Affleck. It really surprised people and showed that he did have the chops behind the camera, which he proved again many times after this. But Gone Baby Gone is a really exceptional film.
Next up, we have the first film that Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan teamed up for. We have Fruitvale Station, which is a sensationally tragic story based on a real person named Oscar Grant, who was killed by police, shot in a trainway station. And it's so tragic and authentic to real life. And this character, this real life person, Oscar Grant, basically was trying to live a clean life and get things together, and he had a lot going for him, and he was gunned down basically for really being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and also based off of his skin color, obviously. And it was a really early story of that broke national attention back in the 2000s, and it's a tragedy that will leave you weeping for hours. Like when me and Anthony saw it, he was crying he was sobbing for 3 hours after we saw this movie. And it's an incredible. Is it a debut from Ryan Coogler or no?
This is his debut.
It's an incredible debut.
He made it through the Sundance Labs program.
That's right. And Michael B. Jordan really shot to stardom with this movie. Obviously, he had a young career working on The Wire and in supporting roles in movies, but this one was a big leading role for him, and he's shot to superstardom since.
Next up, we have another comic book movie, which is another criminally underrated film, Man of Steel. Zack Snyder's Superman film. It's one of my favorite comic book movies. I think it's really special. There's no other comic book movies really like it. And I like what he did with the character. I like what he did with the tone, with the filmmaking. It's a very inspiring film. Cavill was absolutely perfect as Kal-El Superman. I love the Krypton sequence. I love Zod as a villain. There's so much that works for this film. The score, like, how do you top John Williams' Superman theme? You don't really top it, but you do something that's just as good and as just as powerful. And Hans Zimmer came up with something that was really perfect for the film. And I like the mass destruction in the third act. I like it. Amy Adams is great, opposite Henry Cavill. There's so much going for this film. It is a 2.6 on Letterboxd. It does not deserve to be that low.
2.6?
It's overly hated. It's a 6.7 on IMDb. These ratings are way too low. It is
Rotten on Rotten Tomatoes.
Rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a very good movie. It's one of my favorite comic movies to watch, too. So I really love Man of Steel.
Yeah, I mean, Zack Snyder's a very divisive filmmaker, and you either hate or love his movies. It's 7.1 on IMDb. No way it's under a 7. But still, that's very low for Man of Steel, which we think is exceptional, and I think also was ahead of its time, probably, even though it was just back in 2013 it came up. But, man, I adore Man of Steel. I mean, it was one of my favorite early, really IMAX experiences back when we saw it in 2013. It was really terrific. And moving on to number 31, another Spielberg movie, believe it or not, Minority Report. This is an epic crime film about this close future where there's a new branch of police where they are able to see a little bit of the future or crimes that people are about to commit called, what's it called? The
Precognition.
Precog is the name of the department where these three beings are able to see crimes of passion that are about to happen in the future, and Tom Cruise leads a branch of police that stops these murders from occurring, and because of it, violent crimes and murders are now at 0 in Washington, D.C., and it's a film with great science fiction elements, production design. Spielberg's awesome. Great supporting cast. Colin Farrell. We have Max von Sydow in there as well. A great twist.
It's an interesting concept of, like, if someone hasn't committed the crime, how are they guilty? And also, if you know they're going to commit the crime, shouldn't you stop them? It's a great idea. Philip K. Dick's story. It's one of the best science fiction movies of the century, without a doubt. It's incredible.
For sure.
So well directed, too. Dude, the fucking long takes in this movie are great. Oh, my God. Next up, we have an Al Pacino movie. Because he's been in so many great movies, I think this one gets really underlooked and forgotten. It's Serpico, based on a true story. Directed by Sidney Lumet, one of the greatest American directors of all time. Serpico is a great story about an undercover cop who's struggling within a corrupt system and trying to change the system of the police force in New York City. This all really happened. His story really changed things in terms of creating like the IA, the Internal Affairs, things like that, which didn't exist. It's an incredible cop story. It's a great crime film, and it's an all-time Al Pacino performance, and he really completely transforms into this role. I love Serpico.
Get this to the mayor.
Get this to the man.
Next up, we have another Tom Cruise movie and another Michael Mann movie. We have Collateral, baby. This is an excellent crime movie. A lot of crime movies on this list. Tom Cruise basically plays a hitman named Vincent, who is taking Jamie Foxx's character, Cabby, and takes him on as his personal chauffeur for the night while he's carrying out all these hits that are connected to one specific person, his final job of the night. But Jamie Foxx, even though he's basically in this kidnapped scenario that he can't escape, tries his best to stop Vincent from carrying out what he is doing for the entire course of the night. It's awesome, fast-paced, ticking clock, really just it's set in like a 3-hour period, which is really fascinating. An awesome supporting cast, and Vincent is an excellent character from Tom Cruise. He never really does villains that often, but also the character design of having this short-cut gray hair and being this just badass killer. It's so cool to watch.
It's a great film. It's a great LA film.
Yeah.
Great LA film. Also, Mark Ruffalo, early role.
That's right.
That's the detective.
Detective!
And remember who plays the gangster in the club?
Oh,
and Jamie Foxx has to pretend to be Vincent to get the data card.
Let me think.
It's Javier.
That's right,
Javier Bardem. Earlier Javier Bardem role in Hollywood. He's great. All right, next up, we have The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Guy Ritchie's film, which is an excellent adaptation of the TV show starring Henry Cavill, Armie Hammer, and then Alicia Vikander. Great cast. The supporting cast is awesome as well. Fun score, fun soundtrack. I love espionage movies, and especially when they're done well. This movie is just really entertaining. It's a good time. The action's great. The comedy lands. The style is there. The international cities. It hits all the right beats for this kind of film. I'm not sure why it never caught on with audiences. Box office was kind of a failure. They never made sequels even though they wanted to. And then Hammer and Cavill have a lot of chemistry in this film. They work really well as a pair. And it's really a shame that we never got another one because they were just getting things started. But I love this movie. It's really, really well done.
Has everything you want in a spy movie and an espionage movie. Maybe it's something about the Cold War setting that people really aren't interested in. I don't know.
Well, I just think that period pieces nowadays is hard to sell for a huge box office. Anything with a period, that's a period piece.
I guess. And this came out, 2014, so the year after Man of Steel. So it's kind of shocking that it wasn't as big as a hit as I thought it was going to be.
And Hammer was coming off Social Network, so they were both big stars. Alicia Vikander was a European sensation.
Guy Ritchie. I love this movie. It's got so much style and so much class. I'll put it on any time. One of my favorite, guilty pleasure watches. I guess not guilty, but just, insanely rewatchable. That's the
great soundtrack. Great. It's a soundtrack that got me interested in Motown and soul.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Solomon Burke's got a great song in there. There's a great soundtrack.
Moving on to number 35, we have Quiz Show. We talked about this a month ago on the show. It came out in 1994. That's when we talked about it.
The year of 94.
1994, directed by Robert Redford, starring, what's his name, Voldemort, Ray Fiennes, and John Turturro. This film's excellent, and it's about corruption in a game show. Ray Fiennes plays a new contestant on this famous quiz show, and he's going up against John Turturro's character, who's the current champion. However, unbeknownst to some of the characters, there is a lot of corruption involved behind the scenes of this famous quiz show. And
based on a true story.
Yeah, based on a true story. And the curtain's beginning to get unveiled of this corruption involved.
It's about a man who keeps winning, but he's been given the answers by the quiz show.
And originally he was smart enough to become a champion. That's John Turturro's character. However, he's accepted the fact that I'm going to keep winning, to keep giving me the answers. But Ray Fiennes' character is an excellent competitor.
It's a fantastic film. And Robert Redford, he's only directed a handful of movies, but he's a very capable director. This is his best job as a director for sure. Really, really well-made movie. It's a very fascinating story, too. Next up, we have a David Fincher film. The Game, starring Michael Douglas.
You skip one, but that's okay. I'll do it.
Oh shit, yeah, my bad. Anyways, the game starring Mike. I could do no, I'll do the game.
Well, I figured you want to do Blowout because it's your guy.
I'll do Blowout.
I mean, I know
All
how
right,
much
you do
love,
the game.
You love De Palma.
Yeah.
So just do Blowout.
All right, number 36. Forget about the game. We got Blowout, baby.
Look how excited he is.
Starring Travolta. Also a movie poster in my personal bedroom collection.
It's also on his ceiling.
De Palma is just a brilliant director, so artistic. And then this film, it's a really fascinating story about a sound designer and Foley artist who accidentally films and records a murder. And he starts investigating the murder, finding all sorts of nefarious behavior, as well as the assassin serial killer who's been hired to cover up the killing, played by John Lithgow. This is a great movie. It's tense, it's taut, it's thrilling, it's mysterious, it's well photographed, and it's just it's an aspect of like, it's kind of a movie about filmmaking because it's about a sound designer, and you get to see some great sequences of sound engineering, sound editing, sound mixing, recording. These are things that you never see in movies, but they're
film editing too.
Yeah, in film editing, it's so instrumental to the crafting of a movie. And so I love that they put this as the central figure character. So it's a great film. If you haven't seen Blowout, highly recommend it.
Next up, we have The Game from David Fincher, which came out all the way back in 1997. It's making me feel old, starring Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. This is an excellent, underrated Fincher movie, maybe his most underrated film because he's made so many bangers that everyone talks about, but The Game just really flies under the radar and it lives in the shadow of his filmography. But it's really sensational. Michael Douglas plays this successful banker whose estranged brother, played by Sean Penn, shows up with a mysterious gift and basically telling him, like, you're going to be part of this crazy, insanely intense, personalized game. And so Michael Douglas, his life starts to kind of fall apart, and he's being hunted down by people, and these agents and mysteries start to ensue. There's gun violence, there's attacks made on his life, and it starts to get to the point, is this all part of a game, or is it something bigger? Is the game not really existing anymore?
Did this go wrong?
Something terrible is happening. Why are people out after me? And I don't want to spoil the ending because it's that good of a twist. But man, what a good movie. Great mystery, great suspense. Keeps you on the edge of your seat, guessing the reality of what's happening until the last literally 3 minutes of the movie.
And Douglas is fantastic.
Really is.
He's really great. Next up, we have a horror film from Japan called Cure. If you haven't seen it, fucking add it to your watch list right now. I believe it's on Criterion right now, or Max. But it's about this mysterious kind of like serial killer who isn't really killing people, but somehow is getting people to kill themselves. And it's a very mysterious story about the person trying to figure out what exactly is going on. I don't want to give away too much information because it is really surprising, and we can spoil it easily, but it's really artistic, it's creative, it's shocking, it's grim. But man, Cure is such a great horror film. Highly recommend checking it out. We put it on this list because everybody who has seen it is well received, but it just hasn't been seen by many people. It doesn't have that many ratings, so in that way, it's underrated for sure.
Absolutely agree. Couldn't recommend Cure enough.
I'll never look at lighter the same way.
I know, right? I just can't get that lighter. You're screwed. You're screwed if that light's. Moving on. Did you see the list update for you on your computer?
I did.
So you see 39 and 40 silence?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'll do 39. So 39, we have Cinderella Man, which Anthony talked about on Letterboxd Recap like a week ago.
Oh, yeah.
And for boxing movies, Anthony said it was top 5 all time.
Top 5.
I'll have to agree with them, but it's an excellent film starring Russell Crowe. Who directed it?
Ron Howard, baby.
Ronnie Howard directed Cinderella Man. And it's about this guy who can't find a job in the early 20th century, right? It was
During the Great Depression,
1920s. And
he was a former champion.
Former boxing champion.
Yeah, but he hurt his arm, and then he fell into poverty with his family.
And basically, he's fighting to make money for the family and growing up in this very poor world and community in America, and just fighting his way to the top. And it's sensational, great boxing sequences. The choreography is there, very authentic, and Russell Crowe is sensational. I mean,
as always,
peak of the 2000s, Russell Crowe, man, he was
late 90s, early 2000s, yeah,
biggest star in the world probably after winning that Oscar in 2000 for Gladiator. This came out in 2008, 2008?
2005.
2005. Wow, man, what a star this guy was, still is, but man, he was peak in the 2000s.
Oh yeah, big time. It's a true story as well. The man who was on the breadline one year, and then he came up and rose up to become boxing champion of the world the next year. It's incredible.
Amazing stuff.
All right, next up we have Martin Scorsese's Silence, which is so underappreciated. I believe it's only a 7.3 on IMDb. I think it's one of his best films. It's one of the greatest films about religion, spirituality. It's about two Jesuit priests who go seeking their mentor in feudal Japan when Christianity has been outlawed. And it's a sensational, intensely dramatic, powerful film about religion, about questioning faith, about defining what faith is, and about perseverance and holding on to your faith even if it means your death. It's a very challenging film. It's a very important film, I think, for even if you're not a religious person. I get a lot out of this movie just from watching it. So if you haven't seen Silence, it's probably Martin Scorsese's most underrated movie.
Next up, we have another horror film with creatures from underneath the water. We have Crawl that features gigantic alligators. Now, Crawl is about this girl who lives in Florida and a hurricane hits, and basically the levee breaks and the entire community floods with a ton of water, enough for crocodiles to come into the community. And she's also a great athlete and a swimmer. And
she's a college swimmer,
She's a swimmer, and her father's her coach and obviously her surviving parents. And he's missing. So instead of ordering evacuation orders, she goes on a little quest, a side quest, to go find her father.
Someone's been gaming.
To go just find her father who's missing during this hurricane, while also avoiding and combating alligators that have taken over.
This is, I think, the best monster movie made the last several years.
That's a good point, yeah.
It's such a good monster movie, and it's just perfectly done. I think it did pretty good at the box office. Nothing special.
90 mil.
Yeah, this is very good. It just wasn't like really talked about since, and I think it really is. It's a perfect movie for what it is. You know, it's not trying to be anything else. It's very simple. It's very nitty-gritty, bare bones kind of story. But man, they pull it off. It's full of scares, great CGI. The crocodiles look great, or alligators, and as well as practical effects as well. There's some really intense scenes. The characters are put in crazy situations. And man, it's really one of those edge of your seat movies. I think, in my opinion, it's one of the scariest movies made in the last 10 years. When I saw this movie, it was like getting me. I was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. It was fucking sensational.
It's awesome. You recommended to me, like, dude, watch Crawl. I'm like, a movie about alligators? You're like, trust me. Trust me.
I know it sounds silly, but it works.
It's awesome.
It really does work.
Next up, we have your turn. You're next.
An Alexander Payne movie, Election. Now, this is Reese Witherspoon's big breakout movie, and it also stars Matthew Broderick. So it's about Matthew Broderick is a teacher at a school who kind of hates his job, hates his life, and there's a new student election coming up, and his least favorite student, Reese Witherspoon, is running for president. So he's made it his personal mission to stop her from winning the election. And it seems innocent, but it gets very dark. It's a great dark comedy. I highly recommend checking it out. Alexander Payne has made some really great films, most notably The Holdovers this year. Awesome Christmas movie. However, I think Election is his best movie.
Wow.
It's a great movie, and Reese Witherspoon's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's awesome as, like, basically that teacher's pet kind of character.
The most annoying student imaginable. Yeah, she's great.
Like when she makes the cookies. Next up, we have our first and only Christopher Nolan movie on this list. Surprisingly, there is. And we believe because this film is insanely divisive.
Yeah.
Tenet. We love Tenet. And I think it's a misunderstood film that people will grow to appreciate over the years, for specifically the haters. A lot of y'all listening love Tenet. A lot of y'all maybe put it mid in terms of your list of ranking Tenet, Christopher Nolan's movies, but I've seen a lot of hate for this movie. And I think people just don't quite understand exactly all of the concepts in it.
If they don't, they should watch our episode.
Yeah, we did a great episode breaking down everything about it. We explained temporal pincers, everything. And why I think it's so underrated, why we think it's so underrated, is because no one's making movies anything close to this large scale with the intense concepts of time, reality, and just challenging an audience in really interesting ways. And it would have been a huge hit, obviously, if it didn't come out during lockdowns, which it did. Still somehow grossed over $300 million at the box office. But remember, Warner Brothers was going to do a theatrical and digital release with this film, which really irked Christopher Nolan, as well as a lot of their other projects. And so he left to make Oppenheimer with Universal. We'll see if he comes back to Warner Brothers, maybe.
I doubt it.
But this is the movie that caused that rift between him and Warner Brothers because they wanted to release it digitally. And Christopher Nolan's like, there's no goddamn way you're going to release this online. You're putting it in theaters. I don't care if 7 theaters on the planet are releasing it. We drove to San Diego to see this movie. And it was an awesome theater experience, but I think the ideas are there where it's one of his most bold films, and that's saying a lot when you look at his filmography with movies like Inception, Interstellar, and obviously most recently Oppenheimer. But this is his most, I think, it's one of the most out there with the ideas he's playing with. Inception, you're dealing with great ideas of a different reality inside dreams. Now we're exploring the idea of time in a different way, where time is a path that you can travel forwards or backwards through. Not really time traveling to different points, but going reversed in time, reverting or inverting. And it's a challenging movie. The scope is massive. The set pieces are grand, as usual with a Christopher Nolan film and a budget this high. And the cast is awesome, but I love Tenet, and I think it gets better with every rewatch, and especially when you really understand everything that's going on, when you understand the concepts, you understand the realities, you understand that Neil can be in 7 different places at once in this movie. It's really cool when you get all the concepts and you land them. And Nolan does a great job, or his best job is explaining the rules of his movies pretty early in the film, in the first act, which he does in this. But I think he doesn't want to hold your hand. He wants to challenge you as an audience to make you understand the film, which I really like and appreciate.
Well said.
Thanks, dude.
I don't really have anything else to add to that. Banging score, though.
Ludwig, man.
Banging score.
Still listen. I listened to the gym the other day.
Posterity.
Freeport, baby. Posterity's great.
Next up, we have Under the Skin from Jonathan Glazer, starring Scarlett Johansson. This is a 6.3 on IMDb. Can you believe that?
6.3?
6.3.
Now, this is a movie people don't get.
This is probably the most underrated movie on the list now that I think about it.
Could be.
This is a 6.3. Now, this movie, I understand why mainstream general audiences don't like it because it is so unique and so out there. Scarlett Johansson plays an alien who is blending in with humans to capture men to... I actually don't want to spoil it. It's crazy. You've never seen a science fiction film like this. It's great sci-fi horror, which is a complicated genre that really is kind of rare nowadays. It's hard to pull off.
It used to be, but A24 produced this film, distributed it, and so they've really kind of made their butter with that kind of genre.
Yeah, bread and butter with that. Yeah, they
made their butter.
I got what you're saying, man. James when
you talk for 2 hours straight, some things come out that don't always line up well with inside your brain.
But Under the Skin is incredible. Scarlett Johansson is phenomenal in the film. It's one of the most shocking movies I've ever seen. It also contains one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen on screen before. You know what I'm talking about. If you watch this movie, you know what I mean. There's nothing like it. It was so unique, so original, so brilliant in its concept. Really amazing film by Glazer.
Love me a good alien movie, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, we have Brick.
Oh, yeah.
What a great pick. This is Rian Johnson's debut, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and they eventually collaborated several times. I believe JGL's in every single one of his movies, even if it's just a voice role.
Yes.
Even in Glass Onion, he makes the noise of the alarm sound on the island.
Yeah.
So he technically has a cameo in that as well. So
he has a voice role in Last Jedi too.
Yeah. JGL plays this high school student whose girlfriend's body gets found dead after he receives a frantic phone call from her. And his basically path right now and his goal is to discover what happened to her by investigating and infiltrating the high school cliques that he's been avoiding. And basically, it's really interesting to see an investigation film from the perspective of just high school students and discovering the truth behind this mystery. As well as it has some great filmmaking style and elements that Rian Johnson's been putting in all of his films, obviously. But I think in Brick, he did a lot of cool things with sort of graphics on screen that I really haven't seen him do since in a lot of ways. Like he does sometimes text on screen in interesting ways in Brick, but it's an awesome mystery. Great investigation
It's like a modern noir, too.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's really cool.
It's a cool tone. It's very unique. It has like the noir tone of like a detective noir movie from the 50s.
Which is a high school student.
Yeah, it's great. Next up, we have The Gray from Joe Carnahan, which I actually just watched with Mom a couple weeks ago, and she loved it.
Yeah, we talked about it on Letterboxd recap.
So one night we watched the Truman Show, and she fell asleep. I was like, "Fuck," she didn't like it. I was like, "Did you like it?" She was like, "Oh yeah, it was good." And then the next night we watched The Gray, and it ended, and she was like, "Oh my god, that was so good." The Gray is that good. It's visceral, it's gritty, it's raw, it's awesome. It's violent, it's gory, it's scary. Just like Crawl, it's a good monster movie in terms of the wolves being the monsters. I love the film. Great stakes, awesome filmmaking for what it is, and Liam Neeson really commands the screen like he often does. Great cast too. The supporting actors are fantastic, and I really like The Gray. It's a fucking solid action movie. Like, it just works on every level.
It really shows the revelation of the food chain once humans are out in the wild, away from protection, shelter, and weaponry, and how they are just immediately prey. And it's very similar trajectory of sort of a Jaws-like structure, as well as we talked about this with the movie 65. How 65, all they got to do is just follow the Grays beat for beat. Just crash land with a group of survivors instead of just two. And you got a perfect movie. The Gray's awesome and a terrific ending. And I had no idea there's actually a post-credit scene that shows what happened between Liam Neeson and the final wolf. And it's
They
pretty
became
great.
friends.
They run the Iditarod together.
Oh, that's a good one.
And next up at number 47, we have a Ridley Scott film, the first on the list, I believe.
Yes.
We believe his most underrated film, which is pretty recent as well. The Last Duel. We've talked about it on the show multiple times. We did an episode on it 2 years ago when it came out, starring Matt Damon, Adam Driver, and Jodie Comer. This is a sensational film, directed and acted from a terrific script, written by Ben, Matt, as well as, I always forget her name.
Set yourself up, man.
I know, I did. I was like, I'll remember it as I'm saying it.
Nope.
What's her name?
I can Google it.
Yeah, Google it.
Let me IMDb it.
Crap. From the perspective of three different characters, in a way, it's a triptych story where we have kind of three acts that blend together to a finale, but each act...
Nicole Holofcener.
Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Nicole Holofcener wrote this film, and each act basically is a perspective of a different character, whether we have John de Garouche, we have Jodie Comer's character, as well as Adam Driver's character. Each version of the story is told from their perspective until we get the truth, which is Jodie Comer's character's story in the third act. But each character's perspective shifts the actions of the characters, shifts the dialogue, as well as the perspective of what they perceive to be reality and truth, until we finally learn the real reality of what happened in the third act. And it's excellent acting, writing, production design, and some intense action sequences and brutal gore.
It's also very funny.
It is.
And the trailer marketing was so misleading because it didn't show any of the humor.
Yeah.
This it can be laugh out loud, especially with Ben Affleck's character. All right, next up, we have a Ben Stiller movie. The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey.
What a pick.
I think it's one of the most unappreciated comedies of all time.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey's performance is one of his best. It really is. He's just fucking doing it.
He's like got that lisp. He's like hilarious.
Yeah, the lisp. And, oh my! It's about this man who he's a kind of a passive guy played by Ben Stiller who, inadvertently and kind of reluctantly befriends his cable guy,
Matthew Broderick.
Sorry, Matthew Broderick.
Not Matthew Broderick.
Matthew. I just love Ben so much.
Ben directed it. Yeah.
And then he begins learning that this cable guy is fucking psycho, and he begins trying to control and destroy his life in various ways. It is so good. It's unpredictable. It's wild. It's out there. It's so weird too. It's one of the weirdest movies ever made, but in a good way. And I think the Cable Guy is so fucking special.
In a way, the Cable Guy is basically trying to replace him in his life. He's trying to take his life from him. He's trying to take his family away. He's trying to take his girl. It's pretty ridiculous, but it's very funny.
Yeah.
It is, but the stakes get intense. It gets kind of scary at times, but it's hysterical. It really is. For Jim Carrey,
there's a bunch of tones in it. The genre is all over the place.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Remember what cable was like back in the day, though? Like, you had a cable guy come to your house. And
having a cable guy come over was pretty common.
Yeah.
Like, at least a few times a year.
Sometimes you have to have, like, Spectrum or Verizon come to fix your router, but that's it. You just have a modem. Moving on to number 49, we have another Joseph Gordon-Levitt film called The Lookout. This came out before 500 Days of Summer, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was 2007.
He's still
2006.
very young, and he plays this character who was once a hockey star at high school, and then him and his buddies go out. Are they drunk driving or they're just driving recklessly?
It was 2007. Yeah, it was a drunk driving, and he was.
And they get in a car crash, and he gets a traumatic brain injury, a TBI, and he's never the same, and he can't really function completely in society without the help of basically sort of like a mentor kind of character played by Jeff Daniels, whose character is also blind in the film, so they kind of help each other in their lives, and they have a relationship where they want to start a diner together. They have a great menu because he's sick of all the food they eat at the diner they go to. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who works janitorially at a bank, is approached by a former friend of his or friend of a friend.
He went to school with him. Yeah.
Who wants to rob the bank and basically asks Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character to be the lookout during the robbery.
Yeah, but things go wrong, and it's a really interesting performance from Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's something that really put him on my radar because 2007 was a long time ago. It was a big leading role for him in Hollywood because then he did 500, then he did Inception. But The Lookout was really instrumental to his career going forward as a leading
I have
man.
the money. I have the power.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And Jeff Daniels has a great supporting role in it too as his blind roommate.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier.
Oh, did you? So I was looking up the date.
He's like looking up Postmates while I'm talking.
It's Cyber Monday, bro. I'm looking up deals.
Banana Republic, baby.
All right. If you haven't seen The Lookout, great movie. Matthew Good is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
He's sensational in the film as the villain.
And obviously, he's also Ozymandias in Watchmen.
Yeah. And Isla Fisher is great as well.
Yeah.
Early role for her. But the cast is great. All these young stars in an early role.
A lot of young, hot stars in this movie.
They are all very hot. Next up is number 50 on our list.
The final one.
The final movie of our most underrated films of all time. The Proposition from director John Hillcoat. It's a great Australian Western starring the great Guy Pearce and Danny Huston as the antagonist and Ray Winstone as another antagonist in the film.
Yeah.
Really tough, harsh, gritty movie. Excellent violence. Really cool story. Emily Mortimer. Emily Watson in an early role for her as well as Ray Winstone's wife. It's a really great Western. It's fantastic. Excellent poster. John Hillcoat proved himself as a really good up-and-coming director at this time, and then he made 3 more really great films after this. But The Proposition put him on the map. It's an awesome, awesome dark Western.
And that wraps our 50 most underrated films
Wow.
of all time. I'm sure your lists will look completely different. Maybe some of the same, some of the not. But we had a great time putting this list together. Let us know which of these movies you haven't seen, which you have seen, what you think the most underrated film is of all time. Leave a comment on YouTube. Add a comment on Spotify on the polls that we're going to put up. The prompts, send us a DM. But we really appreciate you listening to this episode and hope you enjoyed us breaking down underrated movies. Become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast to get the ad-free version of this episode, even though you've listened to the whole thing probably. But future episodes and past episodes will all be ad-free on Patreon for the minimum tier of $5. Leave those 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple. And don't forget to share us with your family and friends. Take care, everybody.
See you next time.
This episode was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Cody Moen, Andrew Hagan, Becca Keene, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Murphy-Griggs, Nicholas Martin, Darian Singleton, Tyler McFly, Andrew Hagan. Our chosen one patrons are our biggest supporters. Thank you so much. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.